Hello, everyone. Just at the end of the last lecture video, I mentioned spousal RSPs. This is going to be a shorter lecture video just to address spousal RSPs and how they're slightly different than contributing to your own account. So, spousal RSPs are useful in the sense that if your spouse is not using um, an RSP account, or if they don't have the necessary contribution space to make good use of an RSP account, but you do, you can make contributions to a spousal RRSP. So, what's the benefit of this? In a normal situation, when I contribute to an RSP, I am also the annuitant, the beneficiary. So, contributions made subtract from my income, and when I withdraw it later, it adds back to my income. But if, let's say, I make substantially more than my spouse, or perhaps my spouse isn't working, and they have some RSP contribution space that they can't make use of, well, I can contribute to that account. I am the contributor, it subtracts from my income, but as they are the beneficiary, when they withdraw the funds, it's going to be added to their income. So the individual making contributions, the contributor, can deduct the contributions made to the spousal RSP. But by having the spouse withdraw that income, we are effectively accomplishing income splitting, especially if my income is significantly higher. I contribute, we save at those higher tax brackets, that deduction, and then the withdraw comes in at those lower tax brackets. So not only do we delay taxes by using the RSP, we can income split and effectively save taxes or avoid taxes by withdrawing them in a lower bracket. And now, if the spouse is withdrawing the income in an annuity style, so it is qualifies as pension income, then they'll also get the pension income credit. So we may be able to duplicate some credits as well as save money on our tax brackets. So this is a good beneficial plan to go through. The thing is, the government wants RRSPs to be used to save for retirement. They don't want you to try and give income to your spouse simply by feeding it through the RSP. So if I do put income into my RSP, my spousal RSP, the attribution rules will add that income back to me if my spouse withdraws it within 2 years, basically saying you can contribute to a spousal RSP, but we want that income to sit. We want that money to sit, earn money for retirement, so that if your spouse immediately withdraws, so if I put the money in and it's immediately taken out, well, the CRA interprets that as trying to avoid taxes by avenue of the RSP, that we're not using the account to save for retirement, we're just using the account as a tool to split our income. So that's not quite allowed. So if you withdraw from a spousal RSP too early, you might effectively add that income back to the person who contributed it. Um, in order to avoid this, or one way you could avoid this, is if the spouse thinks they're going to be withdrawing RSP amounts, then perhaps they should have a separate RSP that's not spousal. Once I contribute to my spouse's RSP account, it is now like a joint spousal account, which means any withdrawals will check my contributions first to see if they should be attributed to me. But if my spouse has a second RSP account that's just theirs, when they withdraw from that account, since I put none of the money into that account, none of the income can come back to me. So we can leave the spousal RSP for a couple years, and if something happens, we need to pull funds, we can pull from the separate account, the only self RSP that my spouse owns, to make sure all of the income is included in their return. And then after the 2 years have passed and we're safe, now they can pull from the spousal RSP. So a short exercise on that. So in 2022, Mr. Garveau makes a $5,000 contribution to a new RRSP in which he is the annuitant. His spouse, Mrs. Garveau, also makes a $5,000 contribution to his RSP. So because this account has had a contribution by Mr. Garveau and Mrs. Garveau, it is now a spousal RSP. In 2023, Mrs. Garveau makes no further contributions to her spouse's RSP. However, in 2023, Mr. Garveau makes a $6,500 contribution to his own RRSP. So he contributed, Mrs. Garveau contributed, and then he contributed again. So in his mind, he might be thinking, well, since I'm the last person to put income in, the withdrawals will come from my contribution first, but that's not what's going to happen. They're going to check to make sure, are there spousal contributions? Any withdrawals have to come from those first before his own, especially if withdrawn within 2 years. So in 2024, Mr. Garveau withdraws $9,000 from his RSP. What are the income tax consequences of his withdrawal? So 2024 is within 2 years of 2022 when Mrs. Garveau made the contribution. So because we're still in that 2 year window, we're going to look at those spousal contributions first. So when we go to the solution, here it is. So in 2022, both Mr. and Mrs. Garveau added, Gavro, I keep saying Garveau. Mr. and Mrs. Gavro each contributed $5,000, so the account has $10,000 in it. In 2023, we contributed another 6,500, Mr. Gavro. So the account has 16,500. So that's the total amount in the account. When we withdraw $9,000, we first check, did the spouse contribute in the last 2 years? And we do. Mrs. Gavreau contributed $5,000 in 2022. So the withdrawals come from that amount first, and it will be attributed back to Mrs. Gavreau's income tax return. So Mrs. Gavreau will have to recognize $5,000 of income for that RSP withdrawal. And Mr. Gavreau, despite having contributed more to the account, will only recognize the remaining $4,000 that were left after accounting for Mrs. Gavreau's contribution. So Mr. Gavreau still has contributions of $7,500 sitting in the account, but he will recognize $4,000 of income from that $9,000 withdrawal. So if Mrs. Gavreau is hoping to use the spousal RSP as a way to split income and save taxes, by withdrawing the amount too early, they've lost that benefit. They just undid it for themselves. So that's the thing to be aware of for RSPs. So I can contribute to my RSP and save money and deduct from income. I can contribute to my spouse's and deduct from my income. But if we're using a spousal RSP, we have to be aware of how much I've put in and when we are going to be taking those withdrawals. Because if we take it too early, we're somewhat undoing that tax savings by trying to split income. Okay, so that's just a short video on the spousal RSP. In the next video, we're going to talk about what happens, special situations that occur when we can take loans from our RSP. See you in the next video.